Hi, it's Kristen Komiak, and I teach seventh grade science in Edmond. Um, and I just wanted to, this is just a summary of the problems with the deficit orientation as shown in the article about debunking the language gap and the YouTube video honoring Spanglish as a resource tool by Dr. Johnson. And I guess the first visual I thought of was like the half full versus half empty. I know it's not as simple and it's way more far reaching and nefarious than that, but it's like we want a glass, full glass. And we can think of what we don't have and how it's not full. Or we can think of what we have and we're halfway, at least halfway there. So there's so many things that, you know, there's so many costly implications for having this deficit view. Um, and just this problem with labeling students. We're not just labeling students, we're labeling families and communities as a deficit. So Hart and Risley's 1995 study, and I remember when it came out, I remember it was like all the talked about in academia when I was in college, and it just it said that there was a 30-minute invented a language gap, basically saying that 30 million word differential between students of different socioeconomic classes. And it was flawed. Had a huge, really small sample size. I think it was like 46 people. It was a super ethnocentric point of view. It completely ignored the dialectical point of view, meaning, or the fact that children acquire language to be a member of their own communities, not to fit like norms, meaning the white middle class norms, and that use IQ tests to measure intelligence and word acquisition, which is different depending on different cultures, as different words have different forms. But this, even though it was flawed, it was far reaching and had huge implications. Even recently, like former President Obama referred to it, and Hillary Clinton was talking about quoting this huge gap and how we have to fill this gap. Um, and it was just basically a self-fulfilling prophecy, and showed up so students were overrepresented in remedial services and special education, and there were increased dropout rates. And then, of course, parents feeling themselves as not enough, not being able to provide for their children in terms of like linguistically. So it just creates this contrived culture of poverty, which is really damaging. So it's a deficit scientific, blames the victims, and totally delegitimizes students and families' linguistic experiences. And I would even say more than just linguistic, but their experiences in general. Um, the video was really interesting to me. Um, this is taken right from the video clip saying that how Spanglish demonstrates a bilingual dexterity and not a deficient form of Spanish. It's not a new language. And it's used by English and Spanish speakers, and it's not a hodgepodge. And it was just interesting because I totally did think of it, maybe not negatively, but I think actually I did. I thought of it as not as good as Spanish, something like that. And it was definitely a mixture. Um, and now I see it as like a stepping stool, as a resource and a tool in communication. Um, so the competency says candidates can explain how students' first language proficiency transfers to and supports. So it's definitely like supporting Spanglish and using it to build on students' competency. How different doesn't mean deficient. And I just am like really struck by how this deficit orientation, how pervasive it is. It's so widespread, and how it uses fear to motivate people rather than, oh, what their people already know is, and it's just all these power dynamics. Um, I really struck home to me how Spanish is a resource. Even just playing that video, I have a Spanish speaker ELL student at home, and he was listening to the video, and then he was like, let's go to the lago. And it's not what he usually says. He would be like, let's go to the lake and go swimming. So um, it just legitimizes and validates, and that's building. And I know that will mean that he, even just listening to these classes, he's been using more Spanish, and I've been more working on that as well. So it has a huge implication. I also think about it in terms of just widespread how this deficient mentality is, thinking about COVID year, and oh, kids aren't getting this, and yet they got all these great things, all this resiliency, these tech skills, and lots of things that came through from this year. Um, so take home is that it hurts students, families, and communities. And then not just we, but that means I personally need to switch perspectives to funds of knowledge. Even though I think I do, I think I'm catching myself more and more how it's not, there is still this deficit mentality. And I want to work to become more of an advocate. And again, an advocate for saying that different doesn't mean less than. And I want to do the work to continue to legitimize students' and families' linguistic experiences by building relationships, getting to know my students better, working more with ELL teachers, etc. And then just really like using the other information from the other article, how students can use, right, it's not, they can learn another language. It's not easier when they're younger. It's hard, and it's a hard thing, and using some of the basics that we learned in class about sentence structure and how using that as ways to help students um, look at heavy academic things like science in terms of vocabulary and helping them break it down. So yeah, I'm excited to continue doing this work, and I'm appreciative for